Yeah, I think it's a couple, is it 6 or whatever else? You go ahead and do the roll call. Call the meeting order. Do the roll call.
We had one that my brother was fighting for, I don't know, 20 minutes.
Ready for roll call? Alderman Holkfer?
20 minutes.
Ready for roll call? Alderman Holkfer? Roll call?
Here.
Alderman Eichmann?
Here.
Alderwoman Henneman?
Here.
Chairman?
Yes. Okay, then next I think we have Pledge of Allegiance. Stand. Amy?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. About this time of year, every year, I guess we have some changeover with committee makeup. So I think we have Michelle who's joining us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the election. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to share with the group or tell us.
I'm very happy to be here and I'm happy to be a part of it. From Franklin, grew up in Franklin. From Franklin, grew up in Franklin. That's a long time to be here.
Excellent. Excellent. And I think we have some new staff here joining us as well.
Yes, and I'm excited. Day 2.
Day 2.
Yes.
All right.
In fact, I was so impressed that we already look at that. So they're on top of things. So I come with about 7 years of varied government experience. I worked with Kenosha County, mostly in the health division there, and I worked for Andrea and Orndorff during that time. That whole time I was an employee of Andrea. And the last year or so, worked with a bunch of smaller municipalities. Village of Bristol, Village of Paddock Lake, Salem Lakes, and Twin Lakes, all in western County. So I really enjoyed my time there, and I'm excited to be here.
Super.
We're very excited that she's here.
Yeah.
And
Excellent.
it's just really nice to be able to talk about all the government stuff, and Denise knows exactly what we're talking about. And of course, we're going to deep dive on some of the things where she doesn't have a lot of experience, but just the familiarity and that stuff.
Well,
We're
good.
excited as well.
Good. I'm sure there's probably a stack on your desk somewhere that's
But she can't
headed
wait.
your way.
I know.
You mean you can find your desk?
I can't even imagine what the last few times.
I know we'll get into some of that with Brendan, whatever, but I got some other items to take care of as well. But anyway, welcome all of you, and we'll step off items to take care of as well. But anyway, welcome all of you, and we'll step off again. I think another year and how it goes. But anyway, I guess then the next item on the agenda is the annual election of the chair and vice chair. Real time flies when it rolls around. With that, I guess I'll open it up to nominations for the chair.
Nominate Dennis.
I'll second the nomination.
John, you're a regular with this already. I'll say that I'm probably going to have some time where I'm going to be out of the country in September. That will affect us budget early on. But I'm not campaigning for this position, but if that's what it takes, what it
But you do
takes.
such a good job.
Well, thank you. And by all means, if there's aldermen or women that would want to step in, I think over the years we've had some of those. It worked out well. Also, so some of it is maybe just been through the cycles or seeing some of the pattern, the repeats or whatever. But it is what it is. No other nominations?
Steady as she
guess somebody needs to make a motion for here.
I made,
And we have the seconds.
Yeah.
All
Yes.
those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? I guess I'm.
Congratulations. And thank you.
Open up the nominations then for vice chair. Finance committee for.
Well, I will nominate Mr. John Howard.
Second him.
We have a motion for John, and a second. Any further discussion? I know John, second. Any further discussion? I know, John, you've been great in my absence, and I appreciate that very, very much. And it will happen a little bit again this week. Well, I just want to be fully aware. Any further discussions? If not, any further discussions? If not, take a vote. All those in favor of John Howard for vice chair of the finance committee? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none? That motion. Congratulations, John.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, John.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, moving on with tonight's agenda. Item number 3 is the citizens' comment period. I don't see anybody knocking down the door there with great revenge, so I think we can go ahead and close the citizen comment period and move on to item number 4, which is 22 meeting minutes of the finance committee, February 22nd. I think those are attached in your packet. If you've had a chance to look at them, any comments, or if there's a motion, we'll accept that as well.
we approved the minutes from February 22nd.
A motion and a second for approval of the February 22, 2022 minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Moving on, I think we're going to talk about some of the year-end numbers.
In your packet, we had to do it a little bit backwards this year just because of timing, but the packet item you have in front of you, listed as item number 5, is the council action sheet. That's the action council took on May 3rd to do all the fund transfer approvals. If you remember, we have a budget that we set out in the beginning of the year. Sometimes spending is up, sometimes it's down. Anytime it's over budget, there's a statutory requirement that we get that back in line. So those fund transfers are that. In addition to that, we did the encumbrances and the carry forwards on this document as well. So basically on the big sheets attached to the council action and the assessment, the first page is the general fund. So every division of the general fund, you can see the departments that came in over and under. Not really a lot of big surprises. I certainly have some explanations for all the items. The biggest one is fire. Fire overtime has been traditionally overspent. That's something we've been working on since I got here. We have done 2 things. The first one is in the bargaining agreement. We've negotiated 3 days starting in 2023. In 2022, it's 2 days. We were kind of building into it that the firefighters will be paid out for their holiday instead of getting paid for it. So we have 78 days in 2022 that we will not be paying overtime, that we perhaps were paying overtime before. And in 2023, it'll go up to 30 days that they'll get paid out. So they'll still get paid their 24-hour holiday pay, but it will prevent us from having to bring somebody in at time and a half. So holiday pay, but it will prevent us from having to bring somebody in at time and a half. So we think that 78 days this year, next year it's going to be 100 and so that's one change. Additionally, in 2022, part of the budget that you're all involved with, we did approve 2 new firefighters. And that again is going after staffing Station 2 a little bit more completely, but also trying to get that overtime number down. There is going to be something coming from the chief soon to add 1 more position. They got some funding from anything. We kind of do in 3s here just because of their days on and days off. So that 3rd position, the council approves it with this funding, will then lower that. So we're expecting this number to be lower in 2022, and we're hoping to eliminate it or darn near eliminate it. So that's the biggest one. Engine turnover and a couple of what we call severance payments, not not severance in the name of severance, but we have a 2-for-1 sick day on retirement, as well as vacation payouts that happened, as well as engineering often allocates their time to projects. Well, in 2021, we had a higher budget than there was a little bit under there. You can see the highway fund more than covers that. And then the parks that are over, that's simply, we use all of our same employees for highway and parks. So it's simply, we thought we were going to spend a little more time on highways, we spent a little more time on parks. So those are also offsetting each other. The insurance, we budget for that in August, September, but we don't get our renewal numbers until December. So that was a result of that. We do think that there will be a dividend coming that will partially offset that, but it was a bump up. And then the municipal buildings one, that carry forward actually caused that. That was the IRS project, hospital facility improvements. In fact, we have the project ongoing right now. Council approved that project, I want to say, at the second meeting in April. And instead of paying IRS $25,000 because of the bids coming in lower, they're at like $16,800. So we're going to have a fair amount of savings. So overall, we did great on the year. You're seeing it a little bit differently. I kind of wanted to show it to you all in a row. In the past years, we've maybe said that things that we're amending the budget for were coming from fund balance. Technically, we can't use it that way because once we put it in fund balance, if we take it out, that's when our bond rating companies things kind of start poking at us, and that's that savings account they always want us to have but never spend. So we're kind of transitioning into putting that against the current year. So you'll see all of that in the financials. We do have draft financial statements. I'll talk about the audit a little bit in a minute, but in the financial statements, you draft financial statements. I'll talk about the audit a little bit in a minute, but in the financial statements, you will see that we're going to come out a little over $500,000 ahead in the general fund. So factoring all of this in, keep in mind we also have to reverse the prior year encumbrances, and any carry forwards from the prior year also come out in that year encumbrances, and any carry forwards from the prior year also come out in that calculation. So underspent expenditures estimated at $45,000 net. Again, we do those adjustments, and then revenues were over by about $295,000. So again, over by about $295,000. So again, tighter budget in 21 than there was in 20, just as we expect it to continue, but still doing great. Fund balance goes, our budgets are getting tighter, which is what we want them to do, but we've added enough. You can see in the budget. So I'd say we're in a really good position from that perspective. I do have, so that's just the first page. On the other pages, I have all the funds that don't fall, that are not the general fund and are not capital or TIDS, I have listed on here. Just a couple small amendments or small adjustments, transfers with the grant funds to predict. St. Martin's Fund, that's always, the fair fund is always a couple that whenever the fair is held, that's a typical transfer we do. Civic celebrations back in force in 2021. They were a little over budget on the expenditures. They were also over on the revenues. And that sanitary sewer is a bit of a misnomer, but in 2021, that is the sewer lift station project that started late last year. And is health insurance was a little bit higher than expected. Again, nothing to be alarmed about. That health insurance fund does have approximately balance. The next page is all of the capital. First set of yellow marks you'll see are the impact fees. Those are just very small variances from what was planned. The capital 41 capital outlay fund, that $13,000, that was simply the bond the bond costs. Instead of separating it out by purpose, it was just a general account, so covered within the fund. Nothing surprising in the equipment replacement, as we do pre-fund that. And then the capital improvement fund, again, a couple small adjustments in fire and inspections. And then the bigger difference in highway and parks was, again, the same thing. It was a park/highway that got booked to parks rather than that. So nothing really alarming on the capital funds. The TID funds, we will, at the next meeting, be talking about the annual TID report, but this is just a little glimpse of where we're at. We did clear out in TID 7, the bottom yellow line, we did clear out an old encumbrance for 95. but we did have a few extra costs in TID 7. This is the TID where Velo Village, the multifamily, the new multifamily are going in. Mandel's actually in the process of selling it, so the city's going to get an additional payment in addition to its $4.5 million paid off of $4 million. We talked about late last year and early into 2022. So that was just a few extra dollars in legal costs to go through that analysis. And then the TID 3 change was, again, just some small variances in what was expected. So a little bit later in the agenda, we'll talk about the TID 3 closure. Of all the TIDs at the next meeting. It'll line up very well. We have a July 1st regulatory report for TIDs that will be well, so that'll be good timing for that. So we're happy to answer any questions on these. Otherwise, you're going to see, the same numbers again as you see the financials, and we do expect to have the draft audit and comprehensive annual financial report to you at the next meeting.
Yes, go ahead.
Just a super quick question about going back where you were talking about how we're end for 2022, and then on the revenue side, we were over about $240,000. Is that primarily from landfill siding?
That was for 21. No, it's not.
No, okay.
A very small portion of landfill siding, up to 20% goes to operations. And so
That's right.
of that, about 10,000 of it went to the library funds. So that wasn't a difference. Building inspection fees were way up. Building inspection fees were way up, and we'll see the details as we see the audit, but there were a few favorable items. There were some health grants that in 2020 didn't quite get recorded correctly that we fixed up in 2021. But yeah, just there was a number over the biggest one from my recollection.
Okay.
And we expect that to continue well into 2022. Yeah.
All right. I don't think we need any action here since it's already run before the council, correct?
Correct.
Super. Let's, unless there's other comments or.
A little bit about the audit.
Sure.
So we started field work for the audit on the 3rd week of April. Finance department chipped in and got it done. It's our first year with CLA, which means they're building all of the statements. They're now doing our financial statements for us with their programming. So they're building all of this. They're now doing our financial statements for us with their programming. So they're building all of the statements. That's what's just taking a little longer on the tail end. When we first talked to the audit manager that came in, Tom and I kind of explained to him what we did and where we're at and things. And I don't know if Mike was holding his breath, the audit manager, or not, but we got to the end. And I said, "What'd you think? How did we do?" And he way better than I thought it was going to be. So he was very pleased. I mean, we have a sheet of maybe 6 audit adjusting entries. Nothing spectacular. We didn't do a couple. They wanted us to do the tax. There's a new GASB out on the tax receivables because we're the taxing entity. We don't have to count that as a deferred receivable because we actually had the money in our possession. So they're counting that as a current receivable. That was the biggest entry. Some small stuff like that. So I had a call with them yesterday. Our state report is going to come later. It was due on the 15th of May, and on $54 million, I got it with $71. So we're doing it on that. So he kind of went back because, like I said, he's setting up all the fund groupings from scratch. That's what he did before I did the state report. He gave me 1 week with all the fund groupings. And then I was able to do the state report, and then we went back and just kind of compared notes about what categories different things should be in. We have some changes, and then he's going to be preparing the statement, some draft statements June for sure, potentially preparing the statement, some draft statements June for sure, potentially finals, but for sure at the next meeting you will see a draft statement, which will have final numbers, maybe just not all polished. And I know you're used to.
It sounds like it's moving along.
Any
Any other questions?
Repeat those months.
If not, let's move on to TIF 3 we're going to talk about.
I think everybody's pretty familiar with TIF 3. This has been on our radar for some time as being ready to clean item of an accounts payable encumbrance of $865,000 with the Department of Transportation. In November of 2021, we did get a check for just shy of $26,000 from them for the same project. So I thought that was a good sign, but we were a little nervous about closing it. So April 15th is the deadline for the Department of Revenue each year. April 15th is the deadline for the Department of Revenue each year if you're going to close a TIF. If you put it open past April 15th, then it's going to get certified for the next year. So late March, we started knocking on the DOT's door and just asking them where we were at. And at first, they didn't have a whole lot of answers. The last email I got back just asking them where we were at. And at first, they didn't have a whole lot of answers. The last email I got back from them on April 7th said the project manager is no longer with the DOT that did that project, but he really wouldn't have any information regarding the audit as that all happens after construction is completed. The audit will not be completed before the end of this month. That was pressing them for. Our rep at the DOT says they have given me a ballpark of 3 months to completion, which is awesome. Their response is that the chance of money owed would be practically zero. It will be no change or credit. So as part of the audit, talk to the auditors, explain the story to them, $865,000 payable list. 6 months, so the official closure date was April 12th because that's when the clerk sent it into the DOR. It had to be in by the 15th. So we have until October 12th to do our audit. So when I talked to the auditors, I said, how about if we wait till like August? That just so we know that audit's going to be cleared. But I will tell you there's over $1.1 million that's going to be. Right now, we're planning to do it as remainder funds. If by some crazy chance the audit came back and said the money was still owed, that's okay. The TID's still going to close. It would just affect the refunds back to the taxing. So we're in good shape on that. We do have debt payments left in September and March from the closure. We have some computer aid coming in July. That'll be factored in, and we'll make sure the audit's all done and on that one. But what that means is there's going to be extra money for the budget for next year because in that levy limit formula, it basically says take what your increment was, take what your value was, and divide it by your total TID out equalized value, which is about $4.6 billion. It goes about 1.8%. We get half of that. Half of it goes general. The other half gets levies. So one go up and two.
Back in 2005. In 2005, when that was created, the outcome, the vision, right? Build the value, get it, build the value, get it, get the construction done. Fronts and appreciates the paves the way and get it paid for and get it back on the tax benefit new assessed values forward. So that's seeing it come to fruition in the way it's intended. So I think in council sometimes never gets to kind of envision or see the whole thing. You might be there at day one and say, well, geez, are they going to build it? On and say, well, geez, are they going to build it? Yeah, how are you going to finance it? Whatever. But you see it whole cycle, kind of come out the other end and say, oh, that's I think it's worked out pretty well. Not all of them work exactly that way. Peggy's smiling over there already. That way, Peggy's smiling over there already. Some of them have some bumps along the way. Reality gets in the way. Pandemics get in the way. Things down, whatever. But it's good to see that make it transition. Thank you much for that. Anything else, Peggy?
Nothing on that one.
Okay.
We do have TID 4 likely, and you'll see it when you see the TID report next month. TID 4 is on schedule to close for next year. So it's kind of nice when they don't end up in the same year. I will tell you that we didn't hold it back on purpose. That spending period for TID in 2020, but as you know, that's the underlay for TID 8, and it was all the underground work, and they're still finishing up some of that underground before they get onto Hickory for the roadways. So we're hoping to have that closed out yet this summer, and then closure with some good results as well.
Some announcements along the way there as well, so that's good as well. All right, so that takes care of item number 6, I believe. Did 3. Item number 7 sounds like some updates that you're going to give us on various items.
So the first one, and as I look back, I didn't see that the Finance Committee was involved really too much in impact fees as they were being set, what I could tell. If it is, I apologize. If it's not, I just wanted to kind of give you a little update. We do have a study out right now, and I should have probably included it in the packet. This update went to the council on May 3rd. There is going to be a public hearing on June 7th on the same. Impact fees, we talked about them, I think, as a finance committee over the past couple of years about where we have the spending and different things, and we're certainly working on that. We will have an item on next month's agenda to talk about some financing plans for a couple impact fee related projects, but I just really want to make the committee aware of it. I can certainly send you after the meeting the study if you're interested, just so you have that. Right now, the fees, the way they're projected because of the project, so it's 4 disciplines that we're talking about: transportation, fire. So it's 4 disciplines that we're talking about: transportation, fire, water, and sewer. Water is being done because the last time it was done was 2003, and so basically our plan is over. So right now, there could be some questions on whether our water impact fees are actually legal, because, period. Ideally, and the way we're going to do it going forward is at least every 5 years projects. There might not be a change, and in water and sewer, those projects are slower to come about, but we do need to just make sure that we keep ahead of our established planning according to state statutes, the impact fees. So water towers plan, we all know about the water tower on Lover's Lane. There will be a second one there. We'll be taking one down. Those are factored in, as well as a couple other water infrastructure projects. Not have anything with the future source in here. We thought it would be best to fill the future visiting water fees here. On the fire side, right now we've been looking at this new fire/DPW facility. Well, we already had a fire station 4 in the impact fee study, prior study that was done in 2020. They're actually going down a little bit because this number 4, whatever we call it, will be replacing the existing number 2. So anything that's replacement is called a deficiency coverage, and it's not part of the impact fee for growth. Growth pays for growth, but growth doesn't pay for deficiency. So the fire fees are actually going down a little bit. Transportation, we did have a big project. We had DPW, a DPW facility, but the DPW facility that was in bucks that we're looking at right now is north of 18 million. So that's in here as a placeholder, as well as 112th, one stretch into Oakwood, one stretch from Oakwood to 8 Mile. The reason that road is in there is due to the growth that's expected and the way the traveling public is expected to go at that point to get them major thoroughfare. We did used to have Oakwood Road all the way from 27th Street west. That's probably not going to be a very traveled road no matter what. So we pulled that out. We didn't think growth was going to impact that. We do have some issues on Oakwood, but those are more flooding and like that. That's more the issue than a growth issue. So that's why that was replaced. Now I'll tell you, I'd be surprised if council did all of these. Very honestly, it would take a transportation fee of $696 for a new property up to approximately $4,600. So it's staggering. It's not that we don't need it, but it may be, something to that effect. I guess I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but there will be a hearing on June 7th, and then we'll be talking about it shortly after. Sewer is also on here. Not a whole lot of big changes with sewer, except for we're doing these trunk lines in relation to the Lion Creek Interceptor to be needed, and some of them have been changed. All of that has been updated. Not a large change with sewer rates. I will tell you that on the water side, the consultant is recommending, instead of, we do it by recs right now, equivalent units, and it's really hard to determine these recs. It's based on the number of employees and the type of sick code, and honestly, it's got some pretty wild swings as far as is it reality or is it not? So the recommendation from the consultant is the equivalent meter method, which is great, right? Water meter sizes don't change very often. The only problem is the old fee to the new fee. There are some the only problem is the old fee to the new fee. There are some drastic. Went back and did like a 3-year average of all the impact fees, water impact fees, of what they were under the old rates and the new rates, and there were a couple that were pretty big. So we just have the consultant right now making sure that we're solid on our rationale before we go to the 7th. But so that's what's going on there. But yeah, I'm happy to. I can send you the study. I can send you the current impact fees, and then we just have a draft ordinance in front of council right now.
What about the parks? Was that not to be included in?
It wasn't, right. So the parks were done and have parks money to spend, and we're working pretty hard on a plan. In fact, one of the financing plan discussion items for next time is parks. But we do have, we're doing everything we can to get that money spent. We do believe we'll be able to do it in 2022. But according to the plan that was established, will be coming. This trail system, we're trying to get an interconnected trail throughout the entire city. As long as we can keep moving on that process, we're going to be in really good shape. We have a park. We talk about this Southwest Park. I know it's kind of been a moving target, but there's some more serious discussions going on right now, so that could be a big item. Those are the two biggest. Pleasant View Park is being finished right now. That was a $400,000 contract, and there's about $150,000 of park impact fees in there. There's a trail going off of the Marquette Avenue project that's included. Some of our planning studies for the trails. A trailhead perhaps to match the old school. The new school property just west of our DPW facility on Ryan Road. They're looking at putting schools. Well, that trail happens to be in that trail happens to be in the land happens to be in a good place for our trail. So the schools want a trailhead, the city wants a trailhead. We're trying to make that a project. Well, so those are the main things, but we'll get all those details now. I just wanted to kind of tell you about this. I just wanted to kind of tell you about this rate change or this rate proposal because it really hadn't.
Yeah, I know a couple of years ago, maybe, I think, kind of nudge the council to say, ante up here or get the ball rolling or consider a change in those fees or roll it back if this isn't as active or so on and so forth. I think it's all part of I don't want to take another look at. So it's good that that's continuing to move forward, but I know the parks will priority that. Build.
Remind the council at every opportunity.
So Alderwoman Hanneman is also our parks rep, which has been really good to kind of keep those discussions flowing.
Exactly, and it needs to. I mean, those dollars are there. We talked about the headaches of trying to, or whatever, one situation or whatever. Seems like a place that we don't want to go.
No.
All right, continuing on.
The only other item under the updates was just the regulatory reporting, so I'm sure you're all familiar with a lot of this. We have a state report, which is really the biggest report we do annually, and that's basically taking all of our audited numbers from 2021, certain categories, federal grants, state grants, local grants, spending by function, revenues by type, so that the state is able to compare us to all the other communities. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, there's a book called Tax Facts. So basically that Tax Facts book it used to be done by the Taxpayers Alliance, now it's done by another group, very similar, but it basically compares all municipalities and how much their spending is and different things. That's why it's so important. every day you're late filing the state report, so that's how important that's the only report I know of with the state that actually has those teeth. That's the only report I know of with the state that actually has those teeth to it. And the reason is because the Department of Revenue is very important to get all that aggregated data out there so cities can comparison. So that was our biggest one. That was due on the 15th. PSC report is Water Utility Public Service Commission. That stands for Utility. ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. We have the first tranche of the money. We have not spent any of it, although the council has identified 2 projects. One of them is the telephone system at City Hall for about $240,000. Another one is the fiber project for city operations, recommended by the IT Commission, has been approved by the council. The design is nearing completion, and we're hoping to bid that project out by the end of July, beginning of August. We're also partnering with the school district and a couple other school districts, so that when we go on to WISCNet, which is quasi-governmental, I just found out meetings with the school district in the last couple of weeks. They typically have, we're going to join their network, basically. There's a $115,000 fee that they charge anybody who wants to join on their network because they've already built their network. We're also going to be building our own, and they saw the benefits in that, at least the staff at the district, and they will be recommending, as well as us recommending, that MOU that we get with them will not have anything attached to it. So we're good. If it all gets approved by both bodies, we'll save another $150,000 project. It's still going to be about $1.1 million, but we'll have a ring around the city, but we'll have a ring around the city shared with the school district, and we'll go both up to Alverno and out to Waukesha County. Corruption. And our interconnection affects operations basis.
That seems like a perfect with overlap. I'm sure you're aware that this will change over. So I would understand that some of the decisions that anyone have you, so
Yeah.
get us additions, but both the superintendent and the director are retiring. Matter of fact, it was just them about a week celebration. Great people, and at the great people, and at the staff is as capable as they were, but they had a job and this type of collaborative effect was capable as they were, but they had a job and this type of collaborative effect was that when we have areas lapping similar things, harder up, or I think a lot of sense, but anyway, new faces.
And we're hoping to get the MOU taken care of for superintendent and right at the end of June 30th. But that's been our goal, and they've both been extremely supportive. And just because they have the need for the school, they were pretty confident that going forward, others would be supportive, and the school board president was involved in some of those. So, but we are at peace.
Does it have to go to a full vote?
I believe the MOU, the approval of the bill. And then that second tranche of the American Rescue Plan money, the other $1.875 million will be coming in June. So that likely will be a future item. Probably not the June meeting. We have a lot on that one, but maybe July, August, because in advance of the budget, I think it's a good conversation. Yeah.
Any other comments, questions there? If not, let's move on to item 8. 2023 budget.
Here we go again.
Yeah. Finishing 21. They're talking about 23.
Ordinance, this timetable was required. The mayor had to have this to the council by the 1st of May. So we put together the timeline in a similar fashion as we have in prior years. We did have to place a special common council meeting on October 11th, just because of the timing of how the meetings work, as well as when the hearing. The last 2 years has worked out very good. I know the council has been very happy with the finance committee's work on the budget, so we want to make sure we have time to do that as well again this year. So that special meeting would then allow, and it's still a tight time frame, basically September 21st would be the day after the council, the council turned over to the finance committee, and then by October 11th, that special council meeting would have to be held. So we did list down on the bottom some options for finance committee review. Certainly don't need answers now, but we want to give you notice. So we don't need answers now, but we want to give you notice. So we get as many locked in, as many of you there as we can going forward. So we picked 5 days. We need 4. Picked 5 days that we thought were relatively clear. There are maybe 2 days that we thought were relatively clear. There are maybe 2 to 3 other days that could happen, but they might be nights where perhaps like meeting or Hofer have another meeting. So we're trying to stay away from those things. So we thought we'd start with these 5 days. So we thought we'd start with these 5 days. So if you want to maybe look at your calendars, we can talk about it at the July as well.
Yeah, if I recall, I think we had used about 4 dates last year. Kind of divvied up the major department spending areas. Like I have a chance to kind of divvy up or divide up. And I don't know everyone's schedule. I know we use the fixed people schedule. I mean, otherwise you're here till midnight at 7, or especially back to back. And I thought that worked out pretty well. So, 4 to 8, whatever. Pause for a quick break. Pause for a quick break. All right, that sounds good. As I indicated earlier, my travel plans will be that I will not be back until September.
What I'll do, I mean, I can also come up with a couple more options for the meeting, and then we can talk about it, and I'll bring some alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should, just so that on kind of everybody's radar to kind of look at what those two, I guess, more shortcut. So we kind of don't lose sight of those couple of weeks. That's really kind of the window, right?
I mean, I think it would be nice if we could shift our regular shift a couple weeks more into that first week of first. I'm pretty open except
Feel about prior to that doesn't start till 7 off on October 6th.
that's fine. No one wants to deal
We
with
can
the
do that.
hangry sherry.
We can do that. That might help. I mean, I know it's a lot that week.
No,
but
that's. I mean, and I just kind of have that's. I mean, and I just kind of have in my head that that's how we are into September, beginning of October. does that give you enough time then to prepare staff for the special council meeting?
Does, because we'll be preparing along the way. So if you remember on the last night, we were kind of collecting any changes that were recommended all along, and then on the last night, you final decision. So if we're keeping up with you, we can keep up with that. And then it was a Tuesday, not that it has to be. I mean, we could certainly ask council for the 13th. We did, but it would have some discussion at it. So we just want to keep council informed as well, I think, just to make sure that we can keep that meeting going. But yes, I think the 6th would not be a problem for us to come back on.
If you're comfortable with that, that's
Yeah, let's do that. And I'd ask the members to kind of look at their calendars, keep that in mind. And I mean, imagine the booklet will not be, or the binder will not be any smaller than in prior years. There's a lot of beer. The binder will not be any smaller than in prior years. There's a lot of information there. So having 24 hours or whatever, kind of peruse those is definitely helpful. It is what it is. I mean, it pushed up against the public hearing publication dates, and pushed up against the public hearing publication dates, and whatever. All right. If there's anything further to add there, we'll talk about that as we move forward. But hard to fathom already that Memorial Day is almost here. We're talking about finishing 21, and 22 is almost halfway in the books already, and planning for 23. And speaking of 22, it looks like we're going to talk about first quarter.
Share spots the Q1, so January through March financials. I will tell you these are pretty rough. We haven't done a ton of review on them, but we just didn't want to get out of sync with this. Just looking at the cash page, I will tell you, the TIF being the negative cash, that's simply a matter, we do have pooled cash, so that's simply a matter of a transfer. There's no cash there. The 2021 taxes are coming in 2020. There wasn't, as we looked through it, Denise and I both looked through these, as well as I went through them with Tom as he prepared them. There really wasn't anything surprising to talk about at this time. Oftentimes you see one of two things. The bit to get spending going in 22 at the beginning, so you'll have some early spends, and then for more departments you'll see just the opposite, a little bit of a lag. In months 1 and 2 you don't see a whole lot, so there's really nothing that we saw that was surprising. When you see the year-to-date budget number, that's simply a factor of the number we are in compared to the total budget. One of the things we were looking at was maybe, and I'm on just the second page where it talks about some of the revenues. Says we're over or under. Intergovernmental revenues, of course, are under at this point because we have state shared revenue that comes in July and November. Some of those things are talked a little bit. We do it right now by month on that year-to-date budget, but I guess we could massage those a little bit more on when the funds are expected to. But nothing really surprising jumped out to us. We have one of our temporary / part-time employees helping us, and she does a really good job on a lot of financial stuff. As you get into pages behind some of the accounts, that stands for encumbrance. The reason those are noted is because on those encumbrances, we don't re-budget in the new year, so you're likely going to see some overspending there. That doesn't mean we don't have the money. That just means it was budgeted last year, funds were forward, and we didn't re-budget them this year. So again, nothing surprising that we've seen. Just some, small oddball things. I guess we would welcome you to look these over. We're certainly next month, we're going to come back at June, and we should be up to our 5-month statement. So you'll see everything through May, back at June, and we should be up to our 5-month statement. So you'll see everything through May, and we'll bring back the summary, and we can talk about any questions you have. You can email us, and we're happy to answer. But we're early enough in the year that I don't think there's any problems or anything that we have extremely concerned. I don't think there's any problems or anything that we have extremely concerned about. We have to get back on track at this.
Pretty much right.
Like I said, especially on the license and permits, we are seeing a lot going on with building. Very positive. Some of the other ones too early to tell. You know the story with interest. I don't need to tell you about that. You're gonna be low for a while. Nothing surprising.
This, I'm assuming we'll get forward to the council too, or we for a motion here to, at this point, to acknowledge or accept the recommend the council, or not?
I was going to leave that up to you. Like a lot of time, we usually have a little summary on the front. We don't have that. I'm happy to share these with council. Certainly nothing to hide. I guess more information is better than less. So if you're inclined to pass it on to the council, that would be.
I think that'd be my thought. I mean, we understand obviously whatever, but I mean it's first quarter snapshot. I mean, kind of pick up the pieces that rolling from there. That'd be kind of my thought. Anybody else? And I think they can go with that caveat as well that it's tradition. So with that, if there's a motion to accept these and forward them on to the council for review, first quarter results of 2022.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Go ahead.
Second.
Go ahead.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Pass along March 31, 2020 date results. The county council for their. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Super. What do we have next? Council action updates.
Those are really just the last couple items that went. If you recall, in February, we had the consultant for the GASB 7475. We had the consultant for the GASB 7475 report give a presentation here. We did do an expanded council action sheet, talk to the council about that. Again, very pleased with where we were at with that. Sanitary sewer rates were then, after approved by the committee on the 22nd of February, approved by the meeting in March. Those went into effect on the first quarter bill that was issued March 31st.
And as expected, then it looks like we've got some topics.
That's kind of the list that we were going to have a draft for the committee at the June meeting.
Okay.
I mentioned those financing plan discussions we thought we could have at the next meeting. Staff's doing some work internally on it. We'll be ready for the meeting. We always have the OPEB trust investment performance. We have been collecting proposals from it before. I haven't looked at it in a bit here, but we'll bring a recommendation back at the next meeting. We can certainly have a presentation. That was one thing I wanted to ask you about, if you want to have whoever we're going to be recommending at the meeting. That's something you're interested in. Certainly please don't. 3 of the 4 are very local. 1 of them is out of Minneapolis. I'm not sure they could get here, but they do have local people, so they all may be off.
I think if you want our input on it.
Yeah, probably wouldn't hurt to. Because we're kind of entering into a new phase there than what we've had in the past. To kind of see what their ideology.
That would be great. And then just so you know, kind of as an upfront, I quarterly checkpoints and a formal annual. That's something.
Yeah.
Good. And then as far as the bank reconciliation, I'm happy to report that things went much better. We spent a lot. Still have a few old items on the docket. Denise and I have talked about that already. She's going to be working with Roseanne to get those taken care of, but I think we're out of the woods as far as not. I mean, the biggest problem is finding the time to done. We sat down in December, the last, so we just have to take care of, but I think we're out of the woods as far as not, I mean, the biggest problem is finding the time to get it done. We sat down in December, the last, so we just have to be a little more on it on a basis. A lot less discrepancy. You have the new credit card vendors that have been a lot less discrepancy. You have the new credit card vendors that have been wreaking a little bit of havoc, but I think Treasury folks are finding some solutions and we're trying to get the departments to give their reports on a more regular basis. Sometimes we weren't getting a report for a week to week and a half, and they're playing this matching. They were having a really hard time with it. So we've been working with police and the courts, trying to get those more often. So I think we're out of the woods on that. You can certainly ask CLA, our auditors, what they thought of it, but I thought they were pretty where we were at. And the TIF report is not listed on there. That was on there. That was something as hearing today we talked about adding.
Where are we at with numbers on the committee?
As far as members, I have not heard of any.
All the other ones dropped off.
Yes. So our last one that was back in February. So we are 2 down, and the mayor's aware of it.
Kind of interesting time of the year, I think. Trying to look at everything that regurgitate 21, try to look at the ball on how's it bouncing in 22, and then already starting to kind of the crystal ball look like for 23. Typical 4th Tuesday, right? Back on schedule. So make note of that. And if there's anything else, anyone has comments? Otherwise, I think we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
Will we adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
To adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.